So I'm a professor of business at New York University. I also run the master's program in business analytics. And I'm basically an economist and a data scientist by training. So I work with companies and help them figure out questions of mutual interest. So my favorite idea, I would think, is this idea that data that is being generated by consumers when they tap into various kind of devices is being used and can be used in a way that makes their lives better. So unlike a lot of the privacy advocates who constantly remind us that the sky is falling down and the world's collapsing because consumers are uploading so much information about themselves, I look at the upsides of information sharing. And my research in the last decade or so has shown that there's a lot more upside than downsides. So that's what I look into. So what that means is companies and leaders can actually act like butlers and concierges as opposed to stalkers. And we have evidence now by working with various companies across like 10 different countries and 4 different continents that there's actually a fairly straightforward way in which the data that is generated by consumers can be used in a way to monetize and create value that is a win-win for both organizations and companies, and as well as for consumers. So, for the longest time, like privacy advocates will have us believe that consumers are extremely worried about sharing their data and about withholding information so that companies don't get access to the data. But we are increasingly finding out that more and more consumers are willing to exchange their data in return for some convenience or for some economic benefits, such as if you're in a shopping mall and you sign on the Wi-Fi, then the mall is going to be able to put money back in your pocket by giving you an offer that you can't refuse, right? So you're about to buy that expensive jacket which just goes down by price by 30% because you get an offer. So that sort of thing. And we are seeing this not just in business, but also in healthcare, in like public sector, and so on. So I'm working at the intersection of 3 things: the mobile economy, which is the topic on which I recently wrote a book. The second is data and algorithm, and the third is privacy. So, like I said before, my main idea is that I see tremendous upside to consumers sharing their data and algorithms using that in a way that creates a win-win for both consumers and companies. And the next 2 years or so, my plan is to keep working on figuring out how this value can be created so that companies can keep acting like your butlers and concierges and not like a stalker. So I may be biased, but I think artificial intelligence should be on the top of every CEO's agenda. And one of the issues I'm looking at intensively is the new GDPR laws, the European Union's general data privacy protection laws. I personally believe, and I think I have some evidence, that some of those issues are taking the continent back, not moving it forward. So I feel like some of the laws that are being put in place by next year will actually be regressive and are actually bad for the continent, people out here. I can give you an example. One of the provisions of the GDPR law requires companies to be able to explain when an algorithm makes a decision, why it makes a decision of that kind. So, if you are a CEO or a leader, you know that it's practically infeasible to be able to explain why an algorithm makes a decision, because these are algorithms that are based on learning, deep learning methods. So you can't explain why a certain intervention happens. You can measure it, but you can't explain it. So the ramifications of a law that requires an organization to have to explain to every single consumer why an algorithm behaves in a certain way are non-trivial. They are A, infeasible, and B, extremely costly, even if it's effective. So this is why I feel like CEOs should be thinking about artificial intelligence, but in Europe, they should be really careful about how they receive the GDPR laws. It's all about the doomsday scenario. It's all about the sky falling down and the world collapsing, and that's why we have GDPR laws. What these laws are doing are they're raising the bar for the discussion about privacy at a level where pretty much everything becomes infeasible. So, for example, they're redefining what consent means, and to a point where I think it's important to push the definition of consent, but right now the current version of GDPR is pushing it to a direction where it's just become infeasible. And it's particularly bad for small and medium enterprises who do not have the resources to invest in these compliance-related issues. So if you are, again, a leader or a CEO of a small and medium enterprise, you probably are petrified about what these things mean for you. I don't believe that artificial intelligence is the only way to go, right? So, but it is true that companies who don't use AI will sort of, fall back. There's no question about that. But one of the things that is making it difficult for organizations to adopt AI to the extent they want to AI are these regressive GDPR laws. So I think that's an important issue that legislators, policymakers in the EU should really open up their minds and come forward and be open to the idea of revisiting some of the provisions in the GDPR laws, especially those that relate to artificial intelligence and machine learning, because that is the future. So if you're holding back the ammunition that companies require to advance, you are not helping them. You're not helping people or the country or the continent. This is my first time here, so I'm just delighted that I'm nominated for the digital thinking category. So the other 5 people are people I've looked up to for years. Their work has influenced my work, so I'm just delighted that I'll be in the same list as them. It sounds like the who's who of management thinking is here. So I read somewhere it's called the Oscars of management thinking. So I like that title. So I think this is just a tremendous platform that Des and Stuart have put together, because you don't typically see a conference where business leaders or thought leaders from multiple disciplines agglomerate in the same room. Usually you have discipline-specific conferences, whereas this is one where management professors, marketing professors, finance professors, technology professors, they're all in the same room. So it fosters a fantastic conversation, which we typically don't get access to. So that's what I'm looking forward to.